Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. Today, my dear friends, we're celebrating Wednesday of the 11th week in the ordinary time. And we continue reflecting on the Gospel of Saint Matthew. You know, I really love reading Saint Matthew, no? Kasi when I was studying my theology, my master's, I was inclined towards mastering morals, ethics. Yun yung aking thesis, no? Yun ang aking thesis. Hindi ko alam ba't ako napunta sa liturgy. ang thesis ko po nung ako nasa MA school ay morals, no? Pero hindi ko rin alam ba't ako napunta sa liturgy. Kaya favorite ko si Matthew, no? Kasi Matthew has served as a material for morals, for studying morality. No, and the manner that Matthew presents, the elements in the speeches of Jesus, in the discourses of Jesus, are really organized, so organized that it really is fit to serve as materials for studying morals. No? And I cannot but remember my studies, whenever I read this narrative, ito yung ating narinig noong Ash Wednesday, noong Ash Wednesday. At binabalik tayo doon sa tatlong bagay na hinihingi sa atin ng Lenten season. But for the Jewish people, hindi lang tuwing Lent ang prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. No? It is in their entire lifetime as Jews. Hinihingi sa kanilang gawin nila yun. 3 elements to portray one's character of being a faithful Jew. Isang tapat na Hudyo. Prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. And so that is part of their law. That is part of their tradition. Now Jesus takes these 3 things and tells his disciples, as part of the Sermon on the Mount, he tells them, pag ginagawa nyo itong mga ito, be careful. Oh, bakit be careful? Hindi ba mabubuting bagay yan? Hindi ba mabuting bagay ang magdasal? Hindi pa mabuting bagay ang magbigay ng limos? Hindi ba mabuting bagay ang mag-ayuno o mag-fasting? Tama, mabubuting bagay yan. That's why I am inclined towards discussing this in the field of morality. In the Catechism of the Church, we are told that there are 3 constitutive elements for an act to be moral. For an act to be moral. And what are those 3 things? Object. Number 1, object or the act itself. Number 2, circumstance. Number 3, intention. For an act to be moral, these 3 things should adhere together as good. Yung object or the act, the circumstance, and the intention. Ano yung object or the act itself? Well, for example, prayer. Prayer is intrinsically good. Diba? Prayer is intrinsically good. Mabuti yan. So, no question about it. So, itong mga bagay na sinasabi ng Panginoon, yung 3 bagay na yun, they are all good. But that is not the end-all and be-all of the morality of an act. For an act to be good, kailangan yung 3 bagay na sinabi natin ay present, naroroon. Object or the act, the circumstance, and the intention. Lahat dapat yun ay tugma, mabuti. Number 2, circumstance. Yan yung nagpapabigat o nagpapagaan sa act. For example, pagsisinungaling. If we tackle it in that element of circumstance, siguro ay yung masasabi nating level ng pagsisinungaling. Yan. Merong mga tinatawag nating white lies, making lying lighter. No? At meron naman yung pagsisinungaling na talagang buhaya. No? No? Bayan ang niloloko. May ganon, no? So, ano yan? Yan ang tinatawag na circumstance. No? Yan ang tinatawag na circumstance. So, dapat yung circumstance ng act ay tugma sa goodness ng object or the act itself. Number 3, which is the most important, I think, is the intention. And that is what Jesus is capitalizing on in today's gospel. Intention. Somehow, intention influences everything that you do. Both the act itself and the circumstance. When the intention is purely motivated by good, then the circumstance adheres to it and it leads you towards a moral act, a good act. Anong problema dun sa mga sinasabi ng Panginoon? Sabi niya, huwag niyong gayahin yung mga pariseyo, mga hypocrites, sabi niya ganun, na nagdadasal ng malakas para marinig ng mga tao. Bakit? The question of intention. Why are they doing it? Because they want people to admire them. No? They want people to adore them for being so religious. Praying is not bad. It is good. But when the intention is not to pray for prayer's sake, no, then the act becomes immoral. No? Because the intention is not to pray to God. The intention is not to praise God. The intention is not to ask God to make you holy, but rather to raise yourself on a certain pedestal above others, to earn admiration of people, then that's a problem. Almsgiving, the act itself is good. No one can argue about that. Ang pagbibigay ng tulong at limos ay mabuti. No? Mabuti. Walang makaka-argue dyan. But when the intention is driven not by a good, but rather by a selfish motive, then it becomes an immoral act. Ginagamit mo na lang ang isang mabuting bagay para sa masamang intensyon, para sa iyong sarili. The problem with those giving alms in today's gospel, they blow the trumpet, sabi ng Panginoon. No? Yung bago iabot ay, picture muna. Pasensya na, that's the best example I can think of. No? No? Yung ayaw pa ibigay. No? Kasi wala pa yung camera. Pag nandiyan na yung camera, tsaka na natin iabot. No? So what is the intention, no, in doing the good thing? That good deed. So that's the problem with what Jesus was telling to His disciples. Ito yung problema dyan, sabi niya. Yung mga nagbibigay ng limos na nagpapapansin pa, no, bago ibigay yung limos, yung intention nila ay hindi para makatulong, secondary na lang. Bonus na lang yun na nakatulong sila. Pero ang tunay na intention ay iba. And that makes the act immoral. Ano pang sabi ng Panginoon? No? Sabi niya, remember that God is hidden. Remember that God is hidden. Your Father is hidden from you. Sabi niya ganun. Your Father is hidden from you. And so, when you do these things in good intention, no, makita o hindi, gagawin mo. Sabi nga nila, you will know the real character of a person when no one is around to see him. Makikita mo ang tunay na pagkatao ng isang individual kapag wala nang nakatingin sa kanya. That is an issue we have to deal with in this generation, when everything seems to depend on the appreciation of people. When people appreciate what I do, ganado tayo. No? Sino ba namang hindi? Psychologically, that is normal. No? Sabi ng mga psychologists. No? That drives us and inspires us. That is the correct term, I think. It inspires us to do more because people appreciate it. But sometimes, appreciation becomes a condition for us to perform good deeds. When no one is there to appreciate the good deed you're doing, wag na lang. And that speaks of our intention. That speaks of our intention. Ang laman ng ating puso. And so, today, my dear friends, we examine ourselves. Tingnan natin ang ating mga sarili sa lahat ng ginagawa natin. Lalo ngayon, there is a great danger for all of us because everything has to be on the social media. Like, for example, this Mass. Wala man tayo ibang paraan. Yan ang paraan natin. No? Wala nang iba. But we examine ourselves. Do we treat these instruments as ends in themselves? Are we able to remember the reason why we are doing the good things we are doing? Naaalala ba natin na dapat tayong magdasal, tumulong, mag-ayuno, magsakripisyo, dahil ito'y kalugod-lugod sa Diyos. Tayo naglilingkod sa iba, hindi dahil kailangan natin ng palakpak. If people would argue, bakit naka-post pa sa Facebook? Of course, it is part and parcel of how to inform people of the progress of the church. But mind you, that is just 1% of what the church has been doing since time immemorial. No? Marami pa. But that is not the intention of the church. The intention of the church is not to brag about what she's doing. Kung malaman ng mga tao, ano na lang yan? Icing on the cake. No? Ano na lang yan? Bonus na lang yan. Ma-appreciate ng mga tao, bonus na lang yan. But the good deed itself that we are doing is our reward. Because to perform something good with a good intention is a grace from God. Ibig sabihin, ginagamit ka ng Diyos. And I am not talking about big things. Maliliit na bagay, pagpaparaya sa daan, pagbibigay ng upuan, ang hindi pagpatol sa mga mabababaw. No? Yung mga bagay na iyon, ay maliliit na bagay pero it affects our lives. Without a good and pure intention, it brings us to heaven. Naalala ko tuloy yung isang matanda na madalas siyang mag-donate sa simbahan. No? Tapos, I noticed na hindi naman siya well-off, na nagaling sa isang mayamang pamilya. Ano lang, regular, average family. Pero lagi siyang nagdo-donate sa simbahan. And so one time I asked her, Nay, sabi ko, baka po wala na kayong pambili ng pagkain ninyo. Baka po wala na kayong panggamit sa bahay ninyo. And then, she answered, no, Father. Masaya ako sa ginagawa ko. Kasi, yan ang hagdan ko papuntang langit. Yan ang hagdan ko papuntang langit. Napakasimple ng sagot niya, pero come to think of it, that is true. That good deed itself is your reward. That good deed itself, with a good intention, a pure intention, is a grace from God. And grace lifts us up to the Father. Grace communes us, brings us back to the Father. So pwede nating tanungin ang ating mga sarili, ilan na bang naipon kong hagdan o bahagdan papuntang langit? No? Sa lahat ng mabubuting bagay na nagawa ko, ilan kaya dito ang tunay? Ilan ba dito ang walang selfish motives? Ilan ba dito ang may tuturing kong bahagdan papuntang langit?